Here we serve the many-faced god.
My blasters, my let it guide me. Experience of innocence bleed inside me. Elusive chance can have me or untie me. I drifted in a space free of time. I find the highest states of grace in my mind.
At the time the Space Shuttle F.O.I.A. was conceived, the plan was to get high quality clips of footage lasting 2 minutes 20 and under on the Hourflex camera and use these at the post-flight press conferences. The Hourflex camera was a movie grade camera, and due to its bulky film canisters it could easily be justified to take short footage of multiple activities, with that being the best camera available. The on-board cameras would then record VHS footage of longer segments. Whilst at the time much better cameras for VHS were available, the truly appalling quality of footage brought down to the ground and also transmitted via video downlink on the VHS cassettes was tolerated by the fanboys and paying public alike, because really very little of the total mission ever got released. Mostly the public got to see the news reports and the post-flight presentations where the actonauts talked excitedly about the zero-G experience. However, careful examination of what they shared show they spoke with little to no excitement about seeing our glorious spinning ball and the mighty universe. This was working just fine for a while, However, the camera tech was advancing, with the quality of recorded footage getting better and the cassettes getting smaller. I can only guess that questions were being asked about the quality of footage NASA were putting out versus the quality of camera available. Here we're looking at the quality of footage presented in the post-flight presentation of 61A, which was 4 months before the Challenger crash of 86. In 1985, Sony had released the first chip-based 8mm camcorder, and VHS cameras now had mini cassettes. I think it was the expectation of better and longer imagery that caused problems for NASA. With CGI tech now in the pipeline, but very basic, I think NASA took the decision to fake the crash of Challenger, which the crew seemed to survive, in order to give themselves 2 3/4 years breathing space as they developed new CGI tech to push the already hugely successful Ford further forward. Later on, they kept the 0G shuttle as part of the Ford, despite the advancing CGI, because it gave the astronauts something real to talk about in the post-flight presentations, and only made the decision to phase out the space shuttle, or the 0G shuttle, after the crash of STS-107 in 2003, which I think crashed during 0G manoeuvres, which would account for why we see no evidence of survivors for that crash. A sad end for them, indeed. Augmented reality and live CGI sealed the deal, and the decision was made to go fully CGI and retire the 0G shuttle. This has been a long and meandering test of understanding how NASA committed the space shuttle fraud. I am going to condense it all down into a final presentation after I've done this analysis of STS-32. This is the Sony camcorder footage. The space shuttle being a 0G plane makes perfect sense of so much of the evidence that I've seen, and this is a great example of it. So the big advantage of the camcorder was that it was small and it would record sound at the same time. It wasn't all about the image quality when it was released. You know, this is why I think NASA are a complete and utter fraud. This is the image quality we should have been getting previously from space shuttle missions, just with VHS cameras more top of the range. But we've seen what we got in mission 16, STS-51D. So this is them, and we get sound here. Let me just play this.
That looks pretty cool. And all the way in.
So that's a bit of a shock, the sound was for me. So they line up the focus and what have you. Then they go from this to this. Let's just play this and note the flatness of the horizon. So what I think this is I think this is them at the maximum cruising altitude of the space shuttle, which is about 50 kilometers. So they'd be able to take it up to 70 kilometers to do the free fall of around 2 minutes 20, and maybe they could cruise at 70 kilometers, possibly, I don't know, it's hard to say. So I'll just move it through without the sound. So notice how flat the horizon looks there. Let's just have a bit more sound again.
I want you to see how big the actual motion.
So they do that, and it keeps going, and they do some zoom-ins as well. Anyway, so then they go on, so you can see the huge improvement in vision quality. It goes on, and then they put on the GoPro lens, and this is them admitting they got the, well, they call it the wide-angle lens, but we know what that is.
Here's in-cabin with the wide angle on.
As Marshall would say, this is the same thing with the wide angle lens. Alright, whoa baby. Now let's go up and take a
just while we're on views of the Earth from this mission, here is one of the ski slope view of the Earth. Now I'm sure it's me that doesn't understand how science works, or it's the fanboys who don't understand how fraud works. NASA then take the very best camera they've ever had in space and give us 6 hours worth of footage like this. Now I'm sure the fanboys are going to want to say, but Dillygill, you don't understand how science works. So this next clip I find really interesting. I'll just go past this section. It's that I've turned the sound down. The reason I find it interesting is they record all of that stuff, and then there's at least 3 rookies up there allegedly, and they get to see the moon presumably for the first time. And with the hours of stuff they have, this is it. This is the totality, not a zoom in, not anything. No wow, look at that, that's amazing. I might play it again with the volume up in a sec. That's it, and then this is their cuts, and they've cut from that so that they can record this.
Okay, move the light around a little bit.
The footage overall is lengthy and bold. Given that this is the post-production CGI era, I am not surprised. Originally when I started researching the space shuttle, this is what I was expecting to find. Shorter, less compelling evidence of zero-G prior to the post-production CGI era, and then more plentiful evidence of compelling zero-G footage in the post-production CGI era. The most important point for me is that the footage I have received absolutely does not fit the pattern of camera technology. Rather, it exactly fits the pattern of special effects fraud, with the space shuttle being a zero-G plane, and errors utterly consistent with the special effects available at the time. Due to the frustration of trying to find substantial footage, I did draw some hasty conclusions. Now the evidence is in, it is my considered opinion that the reason the footage is withheld is not because there is a lack of footage, rather it is because the footage from the earlier missions prior to the Challenger contain some serious issues that can easily be exposed with modern day editing equipment. Further, even with post-production CGI, whilst the easy pickings of harnesses and view are mostly gone, when presenting a false reality and making a Hollywood blockbuster, and STS-32 is the Jurassic Park of NASA productions, you cannot help but make a few errors. I would love and encourage everyone to demand that NASA go on the record, show all the footage from Spacelab and the Space Shuttle. There is no reason they cannot do this. It can easily be organised into entire missions like they have done for me on my FOIA requests and posted for free on YouTube. So I want to cover the lower body negative pressure magic trick first, and here I want to chart the progression of it.
The system we expected to change fastest in the body was the cardiovascular system, the heart, the blood vessels, the amount of blood in them and the way they operated. So our #1 experiment to stress that system was called lower body negative pressure. Well, we didn't have gravity up there, so we couldn't stand up, and the lower body negative pressure is a substitute for gravity, a way to fake the body out. And we ran that at 4-day intervals throughout the mission, and from the very first time we ran it, it was obvious that there were indeed changes. But the encouraging thing was that these symptoms were present the very first time we did the test, and they didn't get worse as time went on.
Of Georgie that's no longer accounted for, and the blade doesn't really come near her. Let's show you here. Give me a hand here. Tell her. George, you can't even feel the breeze off that. Can you, George? No. And it's completely safe. There's a metal rod in place that stops the saw blade from going too far. Tell her! She's okay! She's okay! She's okay! She's... Actually, she's not okay. Really not okay at all. There's some pathology there in the spine. She wasn't going to have any quality of life anyway. It was Teller's fault. It was Teller's fault. He's supposed to hold it back there. You know, a jury of my peers could never.
Right, to cover the scene and to keep it absolutely as brief as possible. So I think this contraption here is real. It has additions like this strap at the top and a couple of wires hanging off it that are under tension. We can see here that his harness is not hanging out anymore. He is patched up with CGI tech. We saw on mission 16 that there were issues as people turned to the side with harnesses being in view. No such thing here because the CGI tech is there to disguise it. So then moving forward, so he unpacks this and he gets the instruction manual out almost like he's never seen it before. I've seen the training for this on the ground, and rather than repeat the setup, they just discuss it. You'd want the person fully trained on how to set this up so they could almost do it with their eyes shut. At a cost of 1.4 billion per mission and 535 million running costs. You would want them to know how to set it up before getting there. Yes, so there's a cut there. Now the cuts were done with a view to they're miming certain scenes of this, and they want to keep the mime scenes down to a minimum. However, they can run longer than the 2 minutes 20, and so you can see here no junk hanging out. She's got a nice tight blue pants on with minimal rigging, and this thing is CGI'd in, but there would be perhaps points where they could grab onto just little sections of it, so they just have to avoid those with their wires, but the rest would be CGI'd in. That's a CGI towel and lighting effect, and shadows as well can now be done in CGI. So moving forward, nothing too dramatic. I want to talk about this camera, which is the one that gives us the awful vision with the green, blue and red or yellow sort of afterglow. It's just an abysmal camera. 32 missions in, nobody's thought it's just a single camera. No one's thought, oh, I know, let's change those cameras that give us that appalling video footage quality and with a dreadful frame rates. No, they just keep hold of those. It's linked to the VCR system, but that's really important. They could so easily do that, but because they need to hide the fraud, they can't. So now they have better special effects. We can have better vision quality for longer. The lower body negative pressure trick takes up a lot of footage as several of the team members take their turn, so I want to spend a bit of time on it. I just want to take a look at this scene. It's very short and it's so typical of when you do a zoom up. You zoom up in, and I think she's miming, and I think that they've added in the post-production, you know, action first, CGI later, and it's all like this when you close in on it. So we'll just watch this section. So there's nothing actually wrong, as it were, with this. It just shows how they could do the mime. So here she brings her hand out. Is she holding something? Isn't she? Hard to say. Brings her other hand up here. Doesn't look like she's holding something. Brings definitely not holding something in her other hand there. Possibly, maybe not there. Brings her hand round. Brings her hands together. Just keep your fingers apart. Twist them around a bit. We'll add in the CGI later. Oh, look, there's a wire and something in there. So, you know, kind of like, yeah, that could have been there. Just the blur motion hit it. Put your hands together. Where's that wire coming from going to? Just move, open up your hands a bit, stick it in towards your chest area like you were putting one of those little end things onto your body. Oh, twist your fingers around a bit. Yeah, oh, there's nothing in there. Is there something? It doesn't matter, we'll add it in later. And that's really just very typical of how it all looks. Let's just go backwards without my awful commentary, just moving forwards. Just keep twisting and turning, we can put it all in later. So yeah, I mean, that's, for me, that's just miming. And let's just have a listen to them setting it up. It's just so funny. Like, it's like they've never seen it before.
It says hold and no, and then turn power switch on. Then power switch on. No. And now turn power switch on. Okay. I'll keep it 478 for ABK modulation.
It says hello, press next to
Well, yeah, let me do it.
That's just, for me, that's just hilarious. She doesn't even know how to turn it on. And like I said earlier, at a cost of 1.4 billion per mission, of which 525 or 35 million are the running costs, you would have them trained up so they at least know how to turn it on and do the whole procedure without having to get the handbook out. You'd have the handbook there just in case they get confused. 20 times you'd drill them on this, and I know the fanboys are going to say, oh, but you don't understand how NASA works. You know, you don't understand how science works. This is just, it's hilarious. I mean, I suppose it does add something to the plot line, the storyline, but that's because it is a script and an act and a show. And for me, this just absolutely, it's just so obvious.
Charlie says always tell your mummy before you go off somewhere.
So this is from part 31. We can see Crapovision is on. We've got the little lines we discussed in STS 51D, the willful degradation of the image quality. We can see the lighting effect is on as well. Right, let's watch this in a reasonable amount of close-up. We have to be careful. Well, for me, what I found is some of these wires aren't always complete, but this is a complete wire. We'll see that by the end of this. And twice in quick succession, his thumb passes through the wire. So for me, this is just evidence that this is just a CGI wire. As his thumb comes across here, you can see the wire is in front of his thumb. We've got the thumb in focus now, clearly ahead of the wire, closer to us. And then it just passes through. And then it happens again. So here, again, down comes the thumb, across in front of the wire, passes through, and is now behind there. That is the kind of evidence that you would expect to find now that they're using CGI technology. So they can block out the harnesses that are hanging from the side of the people with the patching, but when they have to do complex scenes like this, they've taken a little bit of a shortcut there, and it is consistent with a fraud with using CGI. This for me discredits all of the footage. There probably are a lot more examples in there. I have looked for certain bits. These are just the ones that I noticed. It is quite time consuming to do, and I'd encourage others to do it as well. This absolutely is not the thumb being on the other side of the wire. You can see that if you study it closely. And really in the spirit of anything goes, so she pulls off this thing here, has it in her hand. This is all part of the same scene. So if we focus now on her left hand rather than the magic sticking wire, she's got it in her hand there. Has she got rid of it there? It's nowhere to be seen, but then here it seems to be in her hand again. And still in her hand there, still in her hand there. Then she grabs hold of a load of other stuff, and suddenly it's not there anymore. It's just a bunch of wires. And in case you want, I'll just go backwards, in case you want to see it again. So there's the hint that she pulls this thing off. Could have thrown it away there, but we don't see it leave her hand area and head anywhere. And then it looks like it's back in her hand again here. And then down here, back in her hand again. Then she grabs a bunch of other wires, still in her hand. And it certainly isn't behind here if she did throw it off. Nowhere to be seen floating around. And then it just turns into a bunch of wires. So anything goes, really. That's the point. And it's just a jumbled mess. Okay, so harnesses. I'm going to show you a harness that they missed. But here, if we had a making of STS 32 and they were explaining it all, everyone would be like, oh yeah, so obvious. But the only evidence we get to use against them is that which they supply, and we have to be reasonable about that. And I tried to be really reasonable. There's a lot of stuff that I could include which is on the edge. But anyway, so this is done in the studio, so everything floating is CGI. So that's CGI. This camera here, you know, expensive piece of kit, just left there to bang around. Let's just see that banging around. They just keep bumping into it. So going forward again now this is a scene cut. So we saw on STS 51D that they had lining up technology, and this is done in the studio, so they have they would need to change his rigging. So because currently he's upside down like that, this guy in the hole. So this floats across, he starts moving around. So from there, it could be either there, but I suspect it's there. They change his rigging, readjust his rigging, and there he is, right side up. So everything that is floating in this is CGI, and I'll show you why. They missed a harness. Not there. So that's all patched out. So that's a good view. This little tag will be added in as a CGI extra. Could be could be a spring under tension, but it's here, right between the bum crutch of this guy. So we get the other guy coming down, and here we have his harness. Now this is his pocket area here, So we can't, nobody can be claiming shading. Just moving forward, let's get that on a more sensitive setting. And that's it, they didn't patch it out for that, and so we get to see it. And going backwards now, hanging upside down. So this is really important for me. This moment of carelessness means that we can deduce that with all the errors that we see, that this absolutely is not reality, but this tells us this wasn't done in the 0G plane, and it wasn't, so it was done in the studio. It wasn't done in the 0G plane with the morphing technology, which CGI morphing, which they have now, or the lining up technology. It was done in the studio. So from this we can now deduce absolutely the level of CGI tech that they had. So let's watch this in real time. We can see the quality of the patching out there. We see the other guy disappearing down. I just want to do it in real time. I find it helps for the analysis for you to be able to see it. And there it is. So looking at the rest of the scene, if we go backwards a little bit from here, we now know, because of that harness use, let's just get that in there again, going backwards. So nice. So we know that this is CGI, the floating bags. There's a use of a towel over here. Now this thing here, I think there is a prop in there, and then they added the CGI effect afterwards. That's just my opinion. The tub looking thing here, they swapped this out. Sometimes I think it's CGI, sometimes I think it's an actual prop on a string, possibly a frame, the frame of it, but this I think is prop on a string. And yeah, just going backwards further, so we've got the camera, we got her tucking this thing away down in the bottom left in a moment. She comes in, tucks that away. So all just mime, and but it's just brilliant because it shows us this wasn't done on the 0G shuttle and the scenes strung together. This is all the CGI tech that they can use. So the floating bags, it's the scenes where they go across I just find really interesting as well. There's examples where they bring it fully across later on. It's just such a great way to do an edit or readjust. So he could be behind there readjusting while they're doing this live, and from this Cyclops camera there is no audio, it's just the ground audio, and so they could even have the director saying twiddle here, twiddle there. Oh, it's just hilarious. So yeah, really pleased with that little moment of carelessness by them. I want to show you that the image quality problem is not in transmission issues. One image is the downlink and one is directly from the videotape recorder. This is willful degradation of image quality by NASA. Please watch STS 51D analysis. The idea that after a total spend on the shuttle missions of 44 billion to this point, that we should be receiving such low quality images is not rational. No excuses for this will be taken, because whatever is running through your head to justify this is a result of years of abuse we have suffered at the hands of NASA. I've been feeling particularly angry about having been lied to making this production. I mean, sometimes I find it hilariously funny and other times it really kind of upsets me. But I just throw that in there. Right, I want to start wrapping up. So this is the other big thing of the mission, is collecting of this homeless shelter. And oh no, it's the LDEF, sorry, didn't mean to insult science. Whilst I think it is quite a good plot line or storyline, it is just a stocking filler, so I don't want to waste too much time on that. There's nothing exciting to see. But at least we're treated to some really stunning night imagery. It's about time, given the camera tech. It could easily record this type of thing. Oh, no, I've done it again. My bad. Let me just get the real footage. So we do get city lights this time. And I'm sure it's me not understanding how science works and how hard it is to record from space. But honestly, this is just abysmal. The camera tech is so advanced by now. And we've seen on the other mission that they got a little highly placed to black out the thing. And there is a point where they try to show that they're recording it from the Sony camcorder, but it just doesn't work. I just don't buy it. It's bullshit. This is just beyond belief.
We're recording here. This is Big Jim, JD, 98% Weatherby, about to run the treadmill. And in fact, I'm going to pan down even before he runs, and we're going to notice something. First we're going to notice some wimpy little skinny legs. Now we come down over here, and we notice, lo and behold, the treadmill's not anchored. But lower and beholder, there's Dr. Bonnie J. Dunbar, a scientist ever at work, holding a treadmill. And we're going to, this is a little experiment to see how it works. Go man, go.
Then there is this scene, which is short but over the 0G shuttle timings, which I think is done using the 0G shuttle, and they have the scene lining up tech that we saw evidence of in the STS-51D analysis, but they also have CGI morphing tech to assist them, which would help them ease the edit. They still want to use the 0G shuttle because I don't think anyone at NASA wants a repeat performance of the Apollo post-flight press conference, so it gives the actors something genuine to base their talks on. This scene is over my timings and is what I would consider a well-acted scene, but there are too many errors from NASA for anyone in the least bit capable of critical analysis to take the scene, given the tech now available and the freefall time of the 0G shuttle, the least bit seriously. Just for example, as soon as I stop talking there, this would be an excellent edit point where she places that on the ground, and from there you could easily cut, reset the shuttle, line it up and go again. If you do go over to this site to watch the footage, you're going to think, wow, that's a lot of footage. It does, however, exactly fit the pattern of fraud, which uses special effects technology and the 0G shuttle, rather than fitting a pattern of realism running alongside camera tech. With the evidence I've shown you, we now know that the plentiful footage is what we're up against. However, I've shown you enough damaging footage that the whole thing can be discarded, so far as being proof NASA are the real deal. Further, you would have to disregard all the other footage where errors are shown to believe NASA at this stage. I may come back to the footage later once I've looked at it further. However, my next project is to sum up all the evidence I have found into a well-documented final piece of work. I have taken down my original series, The Space Shuttle Was a 0G Plane, as there was a lot of speculation in it, and understanding people's time is short, I think they will benefit far more from my final work. It's now time to cue the music, where I'll play out a short selection of sped up clips just so you get a sample of the ample footage. First, a quick word from my sponsor.
Is she or isn't she? Yes, she is wearing a hairspray.
But it's 0G hairspray.
In a brand new formula. So fine and gentle, you're the only one that knows for sure. New
0G
spray.
Disclaimer, not guaranteed for the whole world, especially those with critical thinking skills.
This is a journey into sound. This is a journey into sound. A journey which along the way will bring to you new color, new dimension, new value. volume, pump up the volume. Pump that bass.
Would you mind saying that again?
You make me feel so good.
We interrupt this broadcast for you a special news bulletin from our on-the-spot passport.
Oh my God. The music just turns me on. These are sweet
Thinking of a master plan. Death with the record. Death with the record. Thinking of a master plan. Death with the record. Death with the record. Thinking of a master plan. This ain't nothing but sweat inside my hands. So I dig into my pocket, all my money spent. So I get deeper, but still coming up with lint. So I start my mission, leave my residence, thinking how could I get some dead presidents. I need money. I used to be a stick-up kid, so I think of all the devious things I did. I used to roll up, roll up, roll up. I used to roll up, roll up. I used to roll up. This is a hole up. Ain't nothing funny. Stop smiling. You still don't nothing move but the money. But now I learn to earn 'cause I'm righteous. I feel great, so maybe I might just search for a 9 to 5. If I strive, then maybe I'll stay alive. So I walk up the street, whistling this, feeling out of place, 'cause man do I miss a pen and a paper, a stereo, a taper. Me and Eric being a nice big plate of fish, which is my favorite dish. But without no money, it's still a wish. 'Cause I don't like to dream about getting paid, so I dig into the books of the rhymes that I made. Don't have to test to see if I got pulled. Hit the studio, 'cause I'm paid in full. Volume, pump up the volume. Pump that bass. Check this out. Yo, you go to your girl's house and I go to mine. 'Cause my girl is definitely mad because it took us too long to do this album. Yo, I hear what you're saying. So let's just pump the music up and count our money. Yo, but check this out. Yo, Eli, turn the bass down and just let the beat keep on rocking. And we out of here. Pump up the volume, pump up the volume.
Wait a minute, you better talk to my mother.